I want you to picture a specific kind of loneliness.
Hmm.
It's uh, it's not the sharp, screaming pain of a breakup where, plates get thrown or someone cheats. It's quieter than that.
Mm.
It's that feeling when a connection, maybe a friendship, a situationship, or something,
Hmm.
undefined, it just sort of dissolves.
Yeah.
And you're left sitting there replaying the highlight reel in your head, and suddenly the lighting shifts.
Yeah.
You start to realize the dynamic wasn't what you thought it was.
Oh, okay.
And a really ugly question starts to form in the back of your mind. Wait,
Mm.
was I being used?
It is a devastating question, and
Yeah.
and it's one that usually arrives way too late to do anything about it.
Exactly. But here's the part that drives people absolutely up the wall, and I know I've felt this. You realize you were used. You see the imbalance. You see the selfishness. And yet,
You miss them.
you miss them anyway. You actually find yourself longing for the person who treated you like a convenience. How did that make any sense?
Well, if we were purely logical creatures, it wouldn't make any sense at all. Logic says, this person hurt me, therefore I should detach. Right.
Easy.
But the human heart is, notoriously bad at following orders from the brain.
That is precisely what we are digging into today. We are exploring a really, really profound essay by the writer and philosopher Pedro Malha.
Hmm.
It's titled Feeling Used and Missing Them Anyway. And I have to say, this piece feels less like an article and more like a mirror. It's uncomfortable to look at, but you just can't look away.
It is. Malha is dissecting a very specific emotional state. He isn't interested in the big dramatic betrayals.
No.
He's interested in that baffling aftermath where your intellect has the facts, this wasn't fair, but your emotions are still trying to protect the memory of the connection.
So our mission today is to figure out why we mourn these one-sided connections. Why does realizing you were just an option to someone not automatically kill your affection for them?
And can you stop feeling like an idiot for it?
And honestly, is it possible to stop feeling like an idiot for missing them?
That's the core of it, isn't it? The shame. We feel like we should know better. But Malha frames this not as a failure of intelligence, but as a fascinating, if painful, quirk of human memory and attachment.
Okay, well, let's start with how this realization even hits us. Because in the movies, betrayal is this big reveal.
Right.
You find the secret emails, or you catch them in a lie, boom, clarity. But Malha argues that realizing you were used is rarely that cinematic. He calls it a sideways arrival.
I love that description, sideways. It really captures the sneakiness of it. It doesn't walk through the front door and announce itself. It sort of creeps in through the window.
But why? I mean, if someone is using us, shouldn't that be obvious? Why does it have to sneak up on us?
Because your brain is fundamentally wired to prioritize connection over
Protection.
overprotection.
Yep.
You are actively filtering out the red flags because you want the connection to be real. So the realization only comes in hindsight through what Malha calls small recognitions that don't line up.
Okay, let's make this concrete.
Yeah.
What kind of recognitions are we talking about? Because I feel like we all have that friend who says, I didn't see it coming. And everyone else is like, girl, we saw it from space.
Well, Malha points to a specific type of asymmetry, and it's usually about availability. You start to notice, looking back, that contact almost always happened on their terms.
The classic I'm busy versus I'm free right now.
Exactly. But it's deeper than just scheduling. Malha notes that your availability was treated as a given, while theirs was always conditional.
Oh, well.
Think about the power dynamic there. You were the lighthouse, always on, always steady.
Right.
They were the ship that only docked when the waters were rough and they needed a break.
Ooh, that hurts. So you're the stabilizer. You're the emotional rest stop.
Yes. Your attention steadied something in them, but, and this is the kicker, you weren't allowed to rest in return. If you needed steadying, they were suddenly overwhelmed or just too busy.
But here's where I get stuck. If I have that 3 a.m. realization, I'm looking at the ceiling, replaying the texts, and I realize, wow, I was just a rest stop. Surely that kills the vibe, right?
It should.
Once I know the math doesn't work, shouldn't the feelings just evaporate?
You would think so. And that's the cultural narrative of strength that Malha critiques. We're taught that the truth sets you free.
Yeah.
We believe that clarity, seeing the situation for what it is, should cure the longing.
Right. I see they're a jerk, therefore I no longer care. It's a simple equation.
But Malha argues that lived experience essentially laughs at that logic. He has this line, longing does not operate by fairness,
Oof.
and affection does not submit to evaluation.
Affection does not submit to evaluation. That is so frustratingly true. It doesn't matter if you grade the relationship an F-. the affection is still sitting there in your chest.
Because the heart isn't an accountant. It doesn't balance the ledger. So you end up in this excruciating state of, like, cognitive dissonance. You have to hold two contradictory truths at the same time. Truth one, the shape of the connection was uneven and unfair. Truth two, I miss them.
And doing the mental gymnastics to hold those two things without your head exploding it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But I want to push on this definition of being used.
Okay.
Because I think when most of us hear that, we think of a villain, someone twirling their mustache, plotting to exploit us.
Right. We equate being used with being unwanted. We think, if they used me, they must not have actually liked me. It was all a lie.
Exactly. They were faking it to get what they wanted.
But Maha offers a much more nuanced and, frankly, a more uncomfortable definition. He suggests that being used doesn't mean being unwanted.
It doesn't?
It just means being wanted in a very specific, limited way.
Okay, break that down. Limited how?
He draws a distinction between being wanted as a source versus being wanted as a companion.
A source. That sounds industrial, like a battery.
Think of it like this. If I want you as a companion, I want you for who you are, your complexity, your flaws, your whole self. But if I want you as a source, I want you for what you provide. Maybe you provide validation. Maybe you provide excitement. Maybe you provide a listening ear.
So I'm the vending machine. They put a coin in, maybe a compliment or a moment of attention, and they get a soda. They enjoy the soda. They genuinely like the soda.
Yeah.
But they don't want to take the vending machine home to meet their parents.
That is a perfect analogy, and that's why it's so confusing. Because Mala points out that this dynamic allows for genuine warmth to exist. It wasn't counterfeit affection.
That's the part that messes with your head. You look back and go, but that night we spent talking until sunrise.
Yeah.
That felt real.
Yeah.
Their laugh was real.
And Mala says, it was real. The warmth was sincere, but it lacked mutuality. And that is a deadly combination. If they had been cold and calculating the whole time, you could dismiss them as a sociopath and move on.
Right.
But because they offered you genuine warmth, just warmth with the ceiling on it, you can't easily throw it away.
It's almost worse than if they hated you.
In a way, yes, because it keeps you questioning your own reality. The essay has this breakdown of the transaction that I found really validating. He writes, if you were used, then something was taken. But if something was taken, then something was also given.
That's a powerful reframing, because if I say, oh, it was all a lie, I'm basically erasing my own experience. I'm saying my feelings were a hallucination.
Exactly. You're gaslighting yourself, Malha's saying. No, don't do that. You gave something. It was lived. It was felt.
Yeah.
To turn around and say it meant nothing is a form of self-erasure. You have to accept that the connection was real to you and maybe even real to them in that limited way, even if the exchange rate was totally unfair.
So we have this uneven dynamic, this lingering affection, and then we have the shame, that secondary layer of discomfort, as he calls it.
The shame is huge. It's the embarrassment of your own persistence.
It's that voice that says, why are you still sad about someone who clearly didn't prioritize you? Have some self-respect. It feels like, by missing them, I'm consenting to the bad treatment. Like I'm retroactively saying, yeah, it's okay that you used me.
It feels like an accusation turned inward. But Malha offers a really compassionate rebuttal here. He argues that emotion is not an endorsement.
I need you to repeat that, because I think a lot of people need to hear it.
Emotion is not an endorsement.
Wow.
Just because you feel longing, it doesn't mean you are signing off on their behavior. It's not a vote of confidence. It's not an argument you're making. It is simply, as he puts it, what remains when connection has left an imprint.
That separates the feeling from the judgment. So I can miss the warmth without agreeing with the way I was treated.
Precisely. You aren't agreeing with the mistreatment just because you're sad it's over. The heart remembers the warmth. The brain remembers the deficit. They are operating on different tracks.
There's another angle to this missing that Mala touches on, and it hit me really hard. He suggests that often we aren't actually missing the person. We're missing, well, us.
The version of yourself that appeared in their presence.
Yeah. The self that felt awake, noticed, alive.
Think about the source dynamic again. When you are the source for someone, when you're the one providing the stability or the wisdom or the excitement, you often feel very capable.
You feel needed.
You feel needed. You feel a heightened sense of existence.
You feel like the main character. Look at me helping this person. Look at me being the stable one.
Exactly. It's a bit of an ego trap. And when that person leaves, even if they were draining you, that version of you, the capable provider, the muse, the savior, it goes dormant. Mala writes about the tragedy of missing who you were when Hope had not yet been narrowed by hindsight.
Hope not yet narrowed by hindsight.
That is tragic. You miss the you that didn't know how it was going to end. You miss the innocence of the potential.
And that potential is sticky. Which brings us to the concept of the almost.
Oh, the almost.
The relationship that hovered but never quite landed.
The almost is always harder to get over than the done. But why? Why is ambiguity so much more addictive than reality? Well, Malha talks about the difference between continuity and commitment. This is a crucial distinction.
Okay, distinguish those for me. Because if someone has been in my life for 2 years, that feels like commitment.
Not necessarily. Commitment is a chosen future. It's building something together.
Okay.
Continuity is just a habit. It's a familiar place to return to. You were a rest stop on their highway. They stopped there every 50 miles because it was safe and known, not because they wanted to live there.
But being returned to mimics being chosen perfectly.
Yeah.
If they keep coming back, my brain says, see, they can't stay away. There's a bond here.
It mimics it, yes. Familiarity is powerful. But Malha notes that continuity can feel intimate even when it's not anchored in a shared intention.
It creates a loop.
It creates a loop. And psychologically, we know that variable rewards, sometimes they text back, sometimes they doubt, sometimes they're sweet, sometimes they're cold, are the most addictive pattern for the brain.
The slot machine effect. You keep pulling the lever because maybe this time you hit the jackpot.
Exactly. And when it ends, you aren't mourning what happened. You're mourning what almost did exist. The closeness that hovered without settling.
And unresolved experiences leave so much room for the imagination to just keep working. Malha calls this the loop of analysis.
A loop of analysis.
Oh, God, the loop. I know the loop intimately. It's scrolling back through 6 months of messages, trying to find the exact moment the tone changed.
You revisit silences, you analyze emojis, you wonder, was the imbalance malicious or was it just emotional economy?
Emotional economy. That sounds like a corporate buzzword for being cheap with your feelings. Is Malha letting them off the hook there?
I don't think he's letting them off the hook, but he is trying to de-villainize the narrative.
Okay.
He's suggesting that sometimes people are just limited. They aren't trying to hurt you. They just don't have that much to give, or they're hoarding what they have.
Limitation doesn't announce itself as cruelty. It just appears as absence.
Right. But the mind hates that ambiguity. It wants a verdict. It wants to know, was I a fool or was this real? And because you can't get a clear answer from someone who is only half present, you stay stuck in the loop.
You're just analyzing data that will never make sense.
Never.
So, we're stuck in the loop, we're missing a version of ourselves, and we're confused by the warmth. It's a mess.
Yes.
How do we get out? What's the conclusion here? Is there a way to fix this?
Well, if you're looking for a fix, Malha has some bad news, or maybe just realistic news. He emphasizes that there is no clean break. There's no final accounting.
No aha moment where the clouds part and the pain just vanishes.
No. There's no lesson that neatly redeems the imbalance. We often want anger to be the cure. We think, if I just get mad enough, if I realize how selfish they were, the anger will burn away the love.
Oh, I definitely do
And the
that.
cauterized wound.
Yeah, I try to stoke the fire of anger to burn out the sadness.
But Mala says it doesn't work that way. Anger just sits beside it. It's another strand in the knot. The emotional field becomes crowded, not clarified.
Crowded.
You feel angry, and you feel sad, and you feel fond all at once. It's a crowded room.
That sounds exhausting. So we just have to live with this clutter.
He talks about residue, and I think this is a really helpful image. He says, continuing to orient your days around an empty space isn't hope, it's residue.
Residue, like the ring a coffee cup leaves on a table.
Or neural pathways. If you spent a year wondering what they were thinking, or waiting for their name to pop up on your phone, your brain has physically carved that path. It's a groove.
Okay.
When they're gone, the groove is still there. You still notice things through the lens of their imagined response. Oh, they think this song is funny. That's not you being weak or obsessed. That's just neural residue.
The rhythm of your attention hasn't adjusted yet.
Exactly.
So if we can't logic our way out of it,
Yeah.
and anger doesn't fix it, what are we left with?
Mala suggests we are left with a condition.
A condition. That sounds medical.
He means it's a state of being. It's not a problem to be solved. It is the reality of having been touched by someone who took something real without fully meeting you.
And it resists romanticization because it wasn't a great love story.
And it refuses consolation because you can't say, well, at least they loved me.
It's just awkward. It's unresolved. It's a loose thread.
But there is a strange peace in accepting that. Malha ends on this idea of acceptance. Not accepting the treatment. You don't have to be okay with being used, but accepting the feeling of missing them.
So just letting the feeling sit there as a neutral fact.
Exactly. It's not a flaw in you. It's not a mistake you need to correct. It's just a fact. You were a source for someone. You gave warmth. They took it. They didn't give it back. And you missed the connection anyway. All of those things are true at once.
You know, it reminds me of that line near the end of the essay where he talks about the gap they illuminated.
Yes. The ache is not always about the person. It is about the gap they illuminated.
Right.
The desire to be seen and met fully. They showed you that you have that desire, even if they couldn't fulfill it.
And maybe that's the value? If we absolutely have to find one, it proves that our machinery works.
It shows that your capacity to care is durable. You offered companionship to someone who only wanted a source.
Right.
That makes you the generous one. That makes you the capable one. Your capacity for attachment is intact, even if it was directed at the wrong target. And that in itself is something worth protecting.
It's a lot to process. But I think for anyone listening who has been beating themselves up for not being over it yet, this perspective is incredibly liberating.
It is.
You can stop fighting the feeling.
It takes the judgment out of the equation. And when you remove the judgment, the feeling often becomes lighter. It's just a sensation, not a sentence.
So here is where we leave you today. We usually try to wrap things up with a nice little bow, give you 3 steps to move on. But this topic refuses to be wrapped up.
No, it's messy.
It's messy.
And that's okay. Life is messy.
The essay is Feeling Used and Missing Them Anyway by Pedro Malha. If you're feeling that specific kind of loneliness today, that sideways grief, know that it's not a malfunction. It's just the cost of having a heart that doesn't follow a spreadsheet.
Well said.
I want to leave you with a provocative thought to carry with you. We spend so much energy trying to fix the feeling of missing someone who wasn't good for us. We treat it like a sickness we need to cure. But what if we stopped fighting it? If we just let that feeling sit there as a neutral fact, neither an endorsement of them nor a flaw in us, what space does that free up in our minds? What could you do with that energy if you weren't using it to shame yourself?
That's the real question.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.